Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let's go on to approval of previous month's minutes. Wow, there's questions or comments about the minutes for the meeting in June? Shall we move to approve?
I would move to approve the minutes from June.
Second? Second, okay. All in favor of approval? Yeah.
Aye.
Opposed, none? Okay. Kevin, you gonna do the water standards report?
Sure. The flow at the St. Vrain this morning, 8 a.m. was 71 CFS. The historical average is 113 CFS. Column in St. Vrain Creek is the Palmerton Ditch, and that's an 1865 water rate. And column South Platte River is Sterling number 1, which is 1888 water rate. Ralph Bryce Reservoir is full and spilling, and with approximately 2/10 going over the spillway. And Union Reservoir is at an elevation of 26 feet, I believe. I think I got it down. Yeah, 26 feet. I have 27 here. And which is 12,438 acre feet. Or no, it's 11,324 acre feet. About 1,000 feet down. We're releasing 16 CFS.
Question for Joe? Thanks, Tom. Any public invited to be here? Any agenda revisions?
I have none.
What about development activity?
None to report for this month's meeting.
All right. On business, and you gonna talk about
Well, yeah.
washout?
Before oh yes.
Sorry,
Before we jump
before
in.
you jump in, Mr. Chair, if you will, I
I'm sorry.
am counsel of record for the person who's petitioning for the water lease. So I'd like to recuse myself, so I'm not participating in discussion or taking a vote on this particular docket item.
Okay.
So is there a best place for me to go ahead? You can be nice, you don't.
Office, you can just sit outside, whatever.
I can get you.
I'll be locatable.
You can go sit in my office if you want, around the other side.
There's a phone booth thing right around this corner.
Right. Thanks. I just didn't want to get in the way.
Soundproof room. Okay, thank you. Yeah, before I start the presentation, I'd like to introduce Mark McLean. He's representing the applicant in case there's any questions on the lease. We have a pretty standard water supply agreement lease in front of you. We actually have an existing 20-year lease with LWM washout that we entered into in 2008 and goes to 2028. There's 5 years left on that agreement. The state of Colorado, when you have an augmentation, the water supply agreement is for an augmentation project. And they plan on augmenting some wells, or they are augmenting some wells that they pull off the South Platte alluvial aquifer just east of Greeley a little bit. They operate a solar washing facility out there and takes on a little bit for their facilities irrigation. Basically, it has to be augmented. The completions from the wells have to be augmented to the South Platte River. The state of Colorado requires you to have water supply in hand for the full term of the lagged completion of your augmentation plan. So in the case, they've got about a 5-year lagged return impact on the Platte River. And so even though we still have 5 years left on the original agreement, they're not starting the next water year, I assume, probably November. They won't be able to hold their wells because then it would be 5 years after that, it would be outside the scope of our current lease. And so what they're asking for basically is a 5-year extension of the lease they have. We typically only do a 10-year. Water board directed staff a number of years ago, quite some time ago, to not enter into water supply agreements beyond 10 years for concern of, well, how far out can we see? 10 years is a long ways to look at. We were doing 20 years lease. In fact, this lease was originally 20 years. But, so we pretty much told everybody that we limited leases to 10 years. So essentially what this would do would be, we'll terminate the existing 20-year lease, the remaining 5 years on it. We'll enter into a new 10-year lease. The effect is really just 5 more years past what we already have. It's a pretty small amount of water, so we certainly have that. Right now, water delivered would be either effluent, would be first effluent on the wastewater treatment plant, and then secondly, water, fully consumable water stored in Union Reservoir. So it won't impact Longmont's ability to deliver water to water citizens at all. So anyway, staff is recommending that we approve it. Mark's here to answer any questions if there are any questions on the agreement. I would, if water board so chose to make a recommendation to council to approve the agreement, I would ask that it be done in motion be in substantially the form for water board, because we still is in final review with our city attorney's office, and they may make a few small changes. I don't expect any because this is their form, their template. I use their template, but we might have a small non-substantive change. So that's really all I have. Just recommending that water board make a recommendation to the council to approve. If so done, it'll go, since it's a multi-year, it requires approval by council by ordinance. Which will go forward to council in September.
Any questions for Ken about this agreement?
Yeah, Dan, I have no issues with this, agreement, lease agreement. Question I have is, the original cost per acre was $258. We're jumping it to $641. What is it currently?
$641.
It's $641 today?
Yeah.
Okay, and how often do you anticipate doing this cost analysis over a 10-year period? I suspect that it's gonna move.
Every 10 years.
It doesn't happen every 3-5 years? Or? Okay.
It happens about every other rate setting. When the city does a full-blown rate setting for all of our water rates, the water rate consultant is then asked to as part of your study, do a rate setting. I think there's a rate setting coming up, and I think we've got through 2024 is our current rates, water rates set by council, and then we'll do a rate study to set the 25, 26, 27 rates. Probably that will be looked at then. I won't guarantee it, but I'm pretty sure it will be. So this rate will stay. This is the current rate they're paying because the last time the rate was set, it jumped to $641. It'll stay here for 5 years, and then it'll be whatever in 2 or 3 years or longer. It'll be whatever that is.
Other questions?
Just maybe for the purposes of education rather than any kind of problem with the agreement, can you describe just a little bit some of the assumptions that the state or whoever makes with respect to how somebody gets credit for groundwater recharge from effluent from on in the surface water? So like what are some of the mechanisms by which those assumptions are?
So they do an analysis of from the well to the what is impacted. In their case, it's the South Platte River. and then they, you pump in this month so much water, its depletion lags out. And I don't know, the first depletion is probably quite a while.
Yeah, this one's fairly long, but the most important thing is the distance from the well to the river, because the relationship is a square of the distance, so you double the distance, increase the time by 4, for example. So this one's a ways from the river, far enough that it creates a 5-year depletion, meaning that if you pump it in 1 month, the river won't feel that total pumping effect until 5 years has gone by. And so the state wanting to make sure that replacement water is available when the well gets shut off, and that doesn't carry out and injure somebody by creating a shortage, they require that water be provided for those 5 years.
And does that analysis get updated periodically, or is that?
That one's set by decree by the court in the augmentation plan, actually, that Mr. Holwick and myself adjudicated.
Fantastic, thank you.
Do we have any other use for our fluid, other entities?
We do. We have a number of other leases similar to this lease. Our first use is for our own water rights cases. We have return flow obligations. We use water off of a changed water right, and we have to replicate the historical return flow to the stream. And so that becomes, when we use the water, then that becomes a debt we owe the river. And that's made up of a couple different components, like ditch loss, return flow from subsurface, and from tailwater and all those kind of things. All of that makes up an obligation that Longmont has when we use our water rights. So the first thing we do is meet all of our return flow obligations. Then we have a major exchange agreement with Public Service Company of Colorado, where we deliver them fully consumable effluent that they can use in an augmentation plan. And in exchange, we get their CBT water. So we get water out the wastewater treatment plant, water in from Carter Lake. So that's kind of our secondary use of it. And then if there's anything surplus from that, then we can lease that surplus water. It's really primarily it helps raise the revenue to stabilize water rates. It's literally hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. But it's only excess water to what we have downstream. One of the ways we do it is unless is ordering different water from the plant. If we order CBT water, it's not fully consumable, so we have to let it out of the wastewater plant. It's not. If we need a little bit more of the effluent to be fully consumable, then we can convert it into Windy Gap, or we can use water stored in bedrock from fully consumable sources. And so we're always balancing how much of the water out of the wastewater plant is fully consumable, reusable, and how much is not, as well as water stored in Union Reservoir, of course.
Could you say that again one more time for me to hear it? So CDT is not fully consumable?
It is not. It's a single-use water.
Okay.
And that's because the original water right is owned by the U.S. government.
Okay.
They then contracted with Northern Water to distribute the water.
Okay.
So Northern Water distributes the water. In their distribution of the water and the allotment contracts that everybody signs to be able to get an allotment of water, CBT water, the federal government allowed Northern Water to have the reuse rights because it's trans-based.
Yes.
So it's fully consumable. The reuse portion of that was kept by Northern Water. And then that goes down to all water users in the South Platte Basin that are in the Northern District. Back in 1937, when they went to a vote, to convince everybody up and down the river, some people were on wells, some people didn't have augmentation. They didn't have augmentation back then. People are on wells, they didn't need the water. Others weren't under a ditch that chose to get it. And of course, further you go downstream, the harder to get the water in there. So everybody has been taxed since 1937. So as part of that taxing authority, they were promised, well, there'll be greater water supply for everybody in the South Platte Basin, because the reuse of this water, once it's used, will accrue back to the stream, and anybody who's in the district then can use it. So
So even though it's import water, it's not fully consumable.
not to the Longmont, not to
To the
Longmont.
But it is to Northern, and Northern shares it amongst all of its tax base.
Yeah, that's exactly. Everybody, and really what it does, it goes down to the next diverting ditch that diverts water and irrigates land that's in the district. They then can divert that. So it benefits everybody all the way to Chilsburg.
You're gonna continue that.
Yeah, that's a little bit harder. It's I guess it's
Sort
not
of an indirect benefit to the lower part of the river. It would literally take an act of Congress to change.
Yeah, it was, because that's set by congressional act, U.S. Congress action.
And in effect gives some restriction to Longmont to use something like Denver Water does, right, to like reuse water. It restricts Longmont using that as a solution potentially in the future.
Correct, yeah.
So, I mean, Denver Water's been very effective, right, at water reuse, but that would only be an option for us on 80% of our waters. And I don't know how the accounting would even work in that perspective.
Well, we can show you that someday. We do, Wes does that every Thursday.
Okay.
So it is done, it can be done, but yeah, we'll do that someday. But, yeah, how much we put out the wastewater plant is pretty consistent, almost year round. It has been for 30 years. It's just, straight line, but we balance how much of that we need. Over time, we need more and more fully consumable effluent, so we've increased the percentage of both windy gap and transferred water that's fully consumable.
Okay. Tom, I'm sorry, did you make a motion?
I don't remember.
No motion.
No
motion.
Well, let me say this then, is there a motion to approve this agreement?
If I remember the wording correctly, I so move in substantially the same form as what was discussed.
Second? Yeah. Move to second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Passes. Thank you very much. Is Marcia here?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was a few minutes late.
Oh, all right. Sorry, I didn't see you, Marcia.
That's because I'm behind all these big guys. Dan especially.
Actually, we'll have to get you a pillow to sit on. Right in
No.
front of us.
That was last Monday.
Yep.
Scott, the extension of this agreement was passed, so
I'll keep doing this then.
we're good.
Thanks, man.
2033. So, all right. Item 10.
Yeah, just a quick update on the Windy Gap Firming project. We had a very successful tour. Hopefully, steam chair enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was good. It's, if we have time, I don't know, Longmont pretty good host gonna give us about a 20-minute dissertation on
Wow.
it. So,
We talked about this on
stand
bus.
by. No, it's quite impressive. I'm sure you can explain any of that little black line there.
Yes, I'd be happy to. We'll do that. So this is a recent, just last Monday, so This is a recent picture of the reservoir site. So yeah, we had a good tour up there today. Basically, this was taken from the overlook where you looked out on the project. And the tours, not everybody could make today's tour, but I have a number of tours. And you can sign up directly with Northern Water. So if anybody is interested in doing another one of those tours at a later date. Just real briefly, you can see this is the footprint for the dam, and it's actually, you can look right here, you can see the dam starting to come up. So there's actually an embankment there now. Last time we were out there, I don't know, the dam was like 40 foot tall and it wasn't even up to ground level yet. So there's nothing that looked like a dam, but now it's there. So this is the main rock fill. It's a rock fill dam with hydraulic asphalt core. You can now, what was really neat today is that hydraulic asphalt core is starting to get wide enough, long enough that you can, it's not wide at all, it's only 3.5 foot wide. It's long enough that you can really see, you go, oh, there's that hydraulic asphalt core. Ironically, the machine was right where it is on this picture when we were out there. So they were going along quite well. And they don't have everything this is the rock crushing operation here, the sorting. The quarry is over here. And the pipeline that will deliver water to the reservoir comes right down here and then around. So anyway, that's what it looks like right now. Looking pretty good, but wanted to kind of show you progress-wise. So if you can remember that last picture, that's where the dam embankment construction is right now. So that's a little further in terms of the full width of the dam. We're up about 130, 40 feet right now. This is if you cut a cross section here, it looks like it's well on its way, because of how much has been placed. Although this is original ground level right here, so you can see a lot of the construction was the foundation below ground level. It's now going up. We've hit this part right here, so it's all of a sudden the hydraulic asphalt core placement is taking a lot longer. It's kind of slowed them down because they're now literally trying to get this part done. The first part of that hydraulic asphalt core has to be hand applied. The machine can't lay it down. So they're hand applying the first layer all the way down here. That kind of put them back a little, and it's taking a little bit. Once they get over to here, then the hand application is nothing. But you just kind of hit a spot. And the dam is suddenly going to get much longer. But that's just kind of shows where the construction is right now. One of the things I did want to talk about real quick, is schedule and performance on the contract. Right now, we're about 2 years into the 4-year construction period, about halfway, not quite half, almost halfway through. And generally are on target, but to stay on timing, they had to go to 20-hour a day, 24-hour a day. Some of the operations 24 hours a day. Most of it's 20 hours a day, 6 days a week. I think one other time it said 7, but I found out they're only doing 6. But they're having to increase production a little bit to stay on track. So all in all, they're going quite well. In terms of the project, the original contracted amount was $500 million, 21 million in change orders. So the revised contract is 529. Now, this does not include, this figure here does not include the cost for the federal litigation. And so that was pretty significant, and in terms of the overall cost of the project should be counted, as part of the overall cost. This is just the amount that's going to the contractor. So it's, the contractor, there was a change order with the contractor for that federal litigation delay cost because of the federal litigation. It's not included in the sort of actual. And the reason I wanted to highlight this month is we're finally kind of getting the final numbers, and we'll be setting our cash in lieu in September. So we're going to be coming back in September with a lot more detail on the cost, looking hard at not only the cost of the project, but what we expect it to be, because we believe we want to present to Water Board the full picture. This is the project that we're using as part of our cash in lieu calculation. The cash in lieu will be up for review in September. So we'll be looking much harder at all these numbers next month and making some decisions on how does that impact our cash in lieu calculations.
And that 529 or 530, that doesn't include litigation?
It does not include litigation. And we'll bring all that back next month.
So would you anticipate a quarterly cash in lieu review? Would you be looking at these numbers on a quarterly basis then? Or is that, I mean, is that too often to?
It won't, we probably should look at it each quarterly one, but it won't change the number. I think it will in September or December. One of those two reviews, I think you'll probably want to look at it pretty hard and decide what that impact might be or how you might include it. But, we'll bring you that, we bring that data as part of the, but we don't change it until there's actually, this change order, 21.8, you've already calculated in your cash flow. There was a contingency amount, I can't remember the exact number, but round number is about $50 million for the project. And that was included in the original calculation. So every quarter, even though every quarter we'll bring that information in, until it changes, until we expand all the contingency funds, it won't affect cash in lieu. Once we exceed the contingency, which would then mean we'd have to come up with more money, it will. Other than that federal litigation, we now kind of know all the costs of that, and we will want to look at that and decide if we include it or not include it in cash in lieu, and if we do, how we do it. So all of that stuff's going to have to be looked at in September. But this tells us as far as contingency, okay, but not including the federal litigation.
Could you go back a couple of slides? Just something I learned today that I might share that might be interesting. This line here is the asphalt that they're pouring. And they say they can put up to 9 times 2, 9 inches twice. They go through this in a day. So this thing raises the dam, this part, the whole dam raises 18 inches a day. And the other thing, correct me if I'm wrong, Ken or Hope, they make the asphalt up here, do they not?
Correct.
And they truck it on down here, go across these ramps, and fill this little truck as needed, which is kind of it's all the stuff is made right there, whether it's asphalt, bring the rock in, what have you, it's kind of a do-it-yourself right there in the backyard. So, and one other thing is, the people making the asphalt, are they Swiss people?
Well,
Portuguese laborers of the Swiss company.
Yeah, but the Swiss they're putting together, they're running how the mixture goes, and I mean, this is something the U.S. doesn't know very much about. Europe, they know a lot about it. So anyway, that's what I learned today. My takeaway.
It is very interesting because This laydown machine is kind of unique because they put the hydraulic asphalt in there. They also put the sand filter on each side. So it's laying a layer of sand filter, the hydraulic asphalt core, and the sand filter. It's laying 3 zones of the dam at one time.
Sand filter is kind of the walls that keep the asphalt
Yeah.
portion.
Right. So what's the transition from hydraulic asphalt to a fine sand lens to a small rock lens to the actual rock fill
Yeah.
of the dam?
What I miss, Hope?
Seal of approval.
Then finally, this is just for informational purposes. This is the actual hydraulic asphalt core placement, and because it hit that long straight part, plus they're trying to grout companies doing grouting is trying to keep ahead of the hydraulic asphalt core placement. They're a little behind schedule in the hydraulic asphalt core, and there's a lot of concern about, and they've got to get that hydraulic asphalt core going, otherwise they're going to be behind schedule. You know, that's the first thing that goes down. So if that doesn't stay on schedule, then the whole project can't stay on schedule.
Is the hydraulic asphalt core affected by weather? Like, meaning can they work through the winter?
They can. They actually can do better in winter. They actually had to shut down a couple of weeks ago when it was hot.
Okay.
Because they put it down at like 350, 360, which is like 70 degrees hotter than you put down asphalt on a road. I mean, really hot asphalt for placement. And it has to cool down enough that they can put another layer on top of it.
Okay.
So they actually, if you look at those pictures that you can see every week, if you look at some of the snow pictures, there's no snow on the asphalt core. And so, yeah, it's really, now, you know, we get one of our famous blizzards is 24 inches deep. You can't get the workers up there, but, and you can't get around up there, but by and large, it's really the 95 to 100 degree plus days that slows them down more than in the cold weather, which I learned that today. I didn't.
It comes down in almost a liquid form, does it not?
Yeah.
The truck was sloshing around and was bringing it down, so that kind of asphalt, as we know, is kind of a material, but this is kind of as I.
Well, a hydraulic asphalt has basically got double the asphaltic content. Street asphalt.
Yeah.
And then you put it at 350 degrees.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the only. So that's my report on what we got. So it's still going well. The Colorado River Connectivity Channel portion of the project is going well as well. They pretty much. I don't know if you remember, we were talked about last spring during the runoff. We had a bigger runoff on the west slope than anybody thought we would because of the higher snowpack. And that actually inundated the coffer dam that was keeping the main dam construction dry and tumbled. So we had some back. Better than a month. That's all cleaned up now. They're back. Now they've raised the dam, the new dam embankment high enough that we won't have that problem. One of those things that happen in construction. So that's what we want.
Are you gonna go over the Colorado letter and Colorado River?
Yeah, we just put that in the packet mostly for informational purposes for the board. And then also to give me a chance to editorialize. If you read those letters, I really did appreciate the letter, especially the Colorado letter, even the Upper Colorado River Commission letter. They really were focusing on, hey, we need to look at how we do the operating criteria for the federal reservoirs on the Colorado River because it's not working. I mean, the hydrology is not the same. We need to take it, we need to agree to that, we need to take that into account. We need to operate the project. The lower
Unknown caller.
The lower river has been overdrafting the Colorado River forever, and that actually is contained in the federal operating guidelines and rules. They allow that to happen, and in fact, they almost encourage it because they have what's called an equalization protocol. If mead goes down, then PAL is water is released out of PAL to bring mead back up. And so the more you overuse mead, the more you release out of PAL until both of them reach crisis level, which they did last year, and it went into a tier 1. What was crazy to me is these letters went out. If you read them, really clear that, hey, you can't operate Colorado River the way you've been doing it. Literally days after that came out, because of a little bit better water supply this year, federal government lifted tier 1 watering restrictions on. I beat my head against the wall when I heard that. I mean, literally after these letters come out, saying, don't do that. and I don't blame the federal regulators that do that because they're kind of bound by the 2008 operating criteria that technically that's what those numbers say. Technically that's what we were supposed to do, but so really, you know, did you have to lift them right now, right after those letters went out? So I think I like the fact that the state, Colorado Water Commission is smart enough to say, hey, you know, we've got a problem, but really what we have is an overuse problem right now. So hopefully that will be heard, and as new operating criteria is drafted, it's going to have to be, absolutely have to be taken into account. I can't imagine the states, other states, allowing operating criteria to go through like we had 20 years ago. So, not much that we can do. I get it. That's a federal level that we all just kind of have to sit back and watch. We certainly can.
Any questions for Ken? Okay.
And I do have a question. I'm not sure it's formulated quite in my head quite yet, but I mean, Longmont, I mean, we've had discussions, quite a bit of discussion about, you know, Longmont's pretty blessed with water. Blessed perhaps is the wrong word because we play a very active role in securing good water rights, et cetera. But the situation that you talked about with respect to kind of, you know, one day they say we can't do this, the next day we get actually a rainstorm and it's like, I mean, or a long period of rainstorms and it's like, oh, never mind, we're good. And I mean, we don't necessarily live and die by every rainstorm in Longmont, you know, I mean, or even a given season of, you know, prolonged rain or not, right? Or prolonged drought. But I'm just curious about like whether our peers, you know, like other, I mean, I'm not asking you to talk bad about other water companies, but essentially whether other kind of contemporaries of ours kind of operate in that kind of blinders on when the rain is falling and crisis when the water's not, or you know, when the rain's not falling. So, and you don't necessarily need to name names, but is that a more pervasive attitude within the water community, or do you feel like the kind of proactiveness associated with long-term planning is maybe taking a greater hold?
I think it's taking a much greater hold. I'm seeing more and more other water providers really starting to take water conservation serious, really starting to talk about, you know, is our storage component sufficient? I know a number of other talked to some other water managers. Say, yeah, we really don't have much storage. You guys are pretty lucky. Not lucky, we managed our water good.
Do you feel like the feds in that respect are behind the curve, or do you feel like they are getting there?
Well, I think they understand it. I don't know. I believe it's gonna be pretty difficult for the feds to come out with new operating criteria in the Colorado River. Like I think, well, I personally think it should, we should live within the Colorado River Compact. They got way over it. They get 7.5 million acre feet. They use 10, 11, 12 million acre feet a year. You can't, yeah, and I get it, there's a lot of, and I benefit because I eat strawberries and almonds and, you know, I like all that, I get that, but yeah, it has, I think there's going to be more recognition. But I don't know, it's hard for me to predict. I just do know that more and more entities are starting to really truly take conservation and
Ken, do you know, I mean, Colorado really has the continental divide and the rainfall that, you know, gets stopped there as its sole water source, not just the Colorado, you know, there's the Arkansas and all that, but that's it. We don't have any other water sources. California has an ocean, and do you know anything about what the time lag is for investing in developing other water sources like desalination? How long is it going to take them to do, you know, what's sort of equivalent to the energy transition that we're going through now? Right? Because there are other sources of water in California, they just weren't developed because it was cheaper to use through Colorado.
that is true. You know, if it's a major water storage project, you know, Chimney Hollow took us 22 years to get a permit. If I can use that for an example.
I hope we won't have to use that for an example.
Let's hope not. There are, you know, there are some projects they can do out there. I think they're looking a little harder, even more groundwater, conjective use. A lot of their water goes out into the ocean without being reused, and they're doing more of that. They've got some unique struggles. There's a lot of pushback on utilizing Mono Lake water, so that's been used since the early 30s, and so they have some struggles with actually losing some of their supplies potentially. I don't know if that will happen. There is a lot of water up north in Northern California, in the Central California project. How efficiently they can bring it down, and ultimately, though, I think it's, you know, in Colorado, we are in the Palmerton ditch right now today. I mean, half of our ditches are out of priority today. And there's no water going down those ditches, unless they have CBD or something like that. But yeah, I mean, in Colorado, we don't think about, hey, you call a ditch out, they shut the ditch off. And that doesn't happen in the lower basin states. And that's really, I don't know what would happen if you said the All-American Canal is going to go out for a week. Desalinization is really just an energy matter.
Well, there's
a plant could be built pretty quick.
Yeah, there's an energy load, but there's also, and I don't know desal very well, but there's also like there's effluent that comes out of desal that is not great.
Concentrated.
I mean, I assume it would be the sound. Yeah, so the desal is not, I'm thought about desal a little bit now.
It should be a last resort, is what you're saying. But they have.
Or just don't do it.
What?
Like, I mean, honestly, the point Ken was making is maybe turn something off. You know, and say, hey, is this really the priority? Right. You know,
Well, yeah, and I understand, I did
Yeah.
not know that they let clean water
yeah.
flow into salt water. Because we would never do such a profligate thing, you know?
Yeah, Orange County has one of the biggest water reclamation plant. I've got an opportunity to tour it here about 5 years ago. So they are starting to do that, and then they're using it to replenish aquifers. But when you think of the effort of that one plant versus how much water millions and millions of acre feet California uses, you know, it's a drop in the bucket. But I think it's a good start. And they are doing. I believe they're now talking about statewide water conservation mandates.
Did it include agriculture?
Don't know anything about it.
Yeah. I mean, that's.
Well, from an agricultural perspective, aren't they buying the farmers literally to not produce? So, I mean, that seems to be
That is happening in
a
places.
crazy option also. You know, where water conservation is probably the water. We talk about food shortages and all this other stuff, and now we're paying farmers not to produce food because of the water shortages.
I would vote not to produce alfalfa. It should go over to China. But yeah, I want them to produce almonds and strawberries because I go to the supermarket every day and buy those things, but I get it. It's not an easy issue. I get it.
We could produce less thirsty crops and change our eating habits.
Well, we could
You mean cut out strawberries?
do Kentucky. We could stop doing Kentucky bluegrass too.
We're working on it hard
I
here.
understand that.
All right,
I took mine out.
So, yeah, we could probably stick out here till about midnight tonight, talk about the Colorado River and what California's doing, but just, I was encouraged with the state's letter, and I hope there's some I believe we really need hard thought on the federal government as they go forward.
they just have to make some tough decisions.
They gotta do that. Well, it's political,
Yeah,
that's what their problem is.
Okay, item 11, items from board, review water board bylaws. Ken, what are your thoughts about that? You're not proposing any changes, are you?
We're not proposing any changes. Water board just reviews it about annually or biannually or so, but it's been, I don't know, over a year now. And we thought the organizational meeting in August would be a good time to seat in a new member and look into your bylaws. So only if water board has anything they would like to see changed. We don't have any proposed changes.
Does anybody want to go through?
Well, I don't think again, the point that as I'm reading through it, it's all kinds of things, except for the notifications. Whereas at one point in time, you have to notify, or the minutes or the agenda need to be out to us within 4 days. Then another section, that need to be out in 5 days. It just makes sense that a little bit of consistency and easy for someone just make it all 4 days or whatever that might be. Again, new guy, but.
4 days versus 3 days. The hand delivered piece, I think, is what you're
Right,
talking
that
about.
happened, yeah, I think one's a 4 day and then the other
Yeah,
one's
the
3
mail-
days.
Resolutions is 5 days too, so,
And then one's in the back.
yeah, the resolutions.
Right.
By mailing,
5
it takes
days.
5 days, and it doesn't say anything about electronic mailing or anything like that. I wouldn't suggest a change. I would suggest that staff maybe look at that to see if there's a change that could be suggested. I don't think we could wordsmith something on the fly.
Okay.
But I think Dan's got a good point.
We'll look at that and propose something.
Any other comments about the water board bylaws? Anybody? All right. Review of major project listing and items tentatively scheduled for future board meetings. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to look at our calendar of events coming up. And anybody have any comments or questions on those? You know, Ken, I sound kind of like a broken record, but have we left this we were gonna think about our moving water, we got trouble from the reservoir, Union Reservoir. Is that something that it's kind of thinking about, or I don't know if that's something that's gonna happen in the future, we think we need to do it, or where that is actually.
Okay, yeah, we were gonna include that as part of the Union Reservoir update to water board, which I think we have scheduled. Oh, we haven't, well, it's scheduled this fall. What we're gonna do, we're gonna invite, I thought we'd have Kyle Whitaker up here to talk about the Colorado River today, but we were gonna do the Colorado River presentation and then the Union Reservoir, so we'll include that in there.
All right.
That is coming sooner than later.
Anybody have any comments about our schedule of items coming up? Okay. Very good. Informational items and water board correspondence.
Those were attached in the packet.
Yeah.
Nothing else needed for it.
One other thing that keeps coming on my mind, the water treatment plant in Lyons, we're gonna do, there are going to be modifications or upgrades or something a year or two ago. Is that still pending?
That's
Or-
still pending. Did you want it, or do you want me to? Go ahead. So, we actually, the preliminary design was put together, and then it was going to be a design build. And so it was put out to bid for the design build. It came in way higher than had originally been projected. So the actual timing of that has been pushed back. Concurrently, our water demand has not gone up any, and so it doesn't look like we're trending up, absolutely needing that enlargement right away. So we believe we have a few years to continue to plan for it. That is our, next big project, and I believe it's going to look really hard at our next rate setting, the cost of that project and what that means for rates, where the money comes from. Part of it will be bonds, because part of it's an expansion of capacity. Part of it will be existing rates, because it's replacement. When it gets enlarged, then the Wade Gaddis water filtration plant decommissioned. So essentially, it's about half of it's in new capacity and half of it's replacing existing
So
capacity.
we can run that status quo without any risks for a period of time.
Yeah, we believe we're doing okay, especially this summer. We haven't sold water this summer with all the rain. We really haven't. I think our peak day was around 27 NGD.
28, I think that's 28.
And 28 NGD day, which we should have, for a few weeks been in the 30s. And that's, watching the rains. Yeah, we're definitely still looking at that. And actually, when we do know more, we'll see if we get the water plant engineer folks in there to.
And I think peaking is a huge piece that we have to understand really, really well that goes into that, because peaking is manageable. Hope's gonna get that figured out. We talked about it. You got it. No, but conservation does actually speak to peaking pretty well, and so we can that's one of those places where I think conservation really could maybe ease us away from a big project, or reduce the size of a big project.
And even postpone. Very important.
I don't know if you can postpone it, because there's gonna be new treatment regulations, right?
Well, that too.
Yeah, that's kind of from a different angle, but certainly, you know, sizing plants is, if you can do it cheaper, it'd be great.
Great. I do. So, there was a while there where we were really, about a year or two ago, so a year or 2 months ago, something like that, where we were really talking quite a bit about like what this next kind of like reasonably foreseeable project was, because we were trying to figure out like exactly how to set the cash in lieu. And I think what was decided was, of course, that we would go backward in time rather than kind of like forward in time. So go backward to like, okay, well, how much did like wind gap cost, right? Instead of looking forward, and forward, it seemed like we were talking quite a bit about like union pump, you know, the pump back and all that kind of thing, right? And then of course we haven't heard much about that at all since, probably because it's quite a ways out there. But we were talking about it just from the perspective of like, should we think about that project as something to I don't know, set cash in lieu towards or something. So I mean, is that type of project, like the pump back type project, is that so far out that it's really not something that we're talking about very extensively at the moment, or is that something that is included in this like Union Reservoir discussion that you were kind of alluding to?
Yeah, it's part of the whole Union Reservoir enlargement discussion in the Union Reservoir operations, although it's weighs more heavily on the new supply perspective of that. But yeah, that's really just a matter of, we might need to review the cost estimates for that project and compare that to that can certainly be something that we look at, you know, compared to the cost of what you get for me and other things. Yeah, we wouldn't have it by September, but
No, of course.
we can certainly commit to bring that additional information.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm invisible back here behind the line.
As long as somebody can see your hand, that's the key.
Yeah, what can so I? This is almost a cost plus kind of a discussion about where the fees in lieu should be. And what about a market discussion? Because if they didn't, you know, if they had to get the water from somewhere else, they'd be paying a lot more. So should a year ago, the public raised that point. This is, you know, why are we giving our water away for free, you know? I'm just asking, why do we only seem to consider the costs and the economic needs as opposed to, you know, it's not like we're a cash heavy municipality. Is it because of the enterprise organization of the waterworks, or what is it? What's the reason?
You know, I think we've simply included that information occasionally, which I agree with you, Marcia, that we included that information when we had brought a cash and lieu change forward, and that's what that did get the discussion going about, you know, why don't we reevaluate? That's when we, you know, set the current fee, and
We did kind of split the difference on that adjustment, as I recall.
You know,
I feel like looking at the next project or the current project, because I think the next project may be quite far out because of conservation and flat demands. But looking at the current project costs, I think align much better with cost of service principles that are recommended for rate setting, and in this case, system development charge setting. And so you say, this is what it's costing and this is what you pay. And market is lovely, but sometimes market can be driven by things that aren't exactly cost of service, and cost of service is highly defensible. And there's an element of fairness, and I wanna be clear, I'm not pro-developer, I'm not anti-developer. I think developers should pay their fair portion of new demands onto the system. And so you look at, okay, what's this new or current project doing in terms of new demands, and that's where your cost comes from. When you're looking at market, you can be looking at things that aren't actually reflective of the cost that this utility bears to make that new supply.
And that exactly is the question, right? Market is different than cost plus.
Yeah.
And yet, we're talking about, well, we can't afford to stick to the original plan on the water treatment replacement. So shouldn't we be making up?
And I would say that would be one thing I would love to have this group know more about, is there's the system development charges, and then there's the raw water requirement, and those are fees that run parallel. And so there should be a system development charge that is looking at costs of water treatment and getting that money. And whatever water treatment element is expansive, that should be attributed to the system development charges. But the cash in lieu is really about the raw water component. And so cash in lieu shouldn't be supporting no treatment plant by that thought, because it's a raw water fee. System development charge should be. And I did kind of conflate those terms in my earlier statement about cost of service.
Yeah.
So that's
Right.
but
And I freely admit that I'm not that subtle or that fair. It's like, our city needs this stuff, let's make sure we can get it.
let's get it from the system development charges, but not the cash in lieu. I'm all for getting them on, to be clear. And I'm also very much in line with what I think the thrust of your point is the ratepayers shouldn't be paying for expansion. Development should be paying for expansion. Growth pays for growth.
Yeah. And I
You don't think that's happening to the extent it ought to?
Okay, I wanna be clear, I'm not throwing stones at system development charges. I would just love to know more. And I think it is. I do trust the city's analysis of that system development charges are capturing, particularly between cash in lieu and system development charges, we are capturing growth paying for growth. But it's always worth checking, and I believe you guys check every, 5 years you do a rate study?
Yeah, that's looked at in the rates. And then the next rate study will look at the system development fee.
Yeah.
Specifically for that.
Although the ratepayers should pay for the depreciation and replacement on the existing facilities, so the developers obviously can't pay for the new plant all by themselves, because they're only a little piece of the reason we need to replace it.
Chris, you got a comment?
I was just gonna say that our system development fees were reviewed about 3 years ago, so we've disconnected rates and system development fees in that cycle. So system development fees would come up another 2 years after rates, if we do this rate study.
And when I say I would love to know more about system development fees, I think this group would be well informed to understand system development charges and cash in lieu and how they work together. And to know that developers are seeing both of those fees.
Economically, things have changed significantly over the last 3 years.
So much.
So our system development fees were based upon estimates that were done 5 years ago.
Well, food for thought.
It is.
But I think there's a lot we don't understand. It'd be nice to understand it more thoroughly, but I guess we'll learn by doing it. See what we're doing.
And I have good faith in staff. Like, I do feel like staff has it well in hand. We're just there first probably to ask questions.
Good. Well, that covers cash and lieu. Our timing on where we looked at in September, as Ken said, we'll start looking at the gap and how that impacts it. Discuss future water board agendas.
Only if water board has additional items. So Sounds like we've got a little bit here to mull over.
Yeah,
You got some options there.
Yeah. What else for the good of the cause? I was hoping for 15 minutes anyway. Will you bring more to the meeting next time?
You got it.
Oh, good.
He's really asking for one of those snacks that you make.